Germany built over 49,000 tanks during World War II, but here's what most people don't know. Only 7 main designs rolled off the production lines. 7 tanks that would define armored warfare from Poland to Berlin. The Allies built over 200,000 tanks during the same period. The Soviets alone produced more T-34s than Germany produced tanks of all types combined. So how did Germany's armored forces achieve such devastating early victories? And why did their technological superiority ultimately fail to win the war? The answer lies in these 7 tanks. Some were training vehicles forced into combat when real tanks weren't ready. Others were engineering masterpieces that cost twice as much and arrived too late to matter. And one tank, in the hands of a single crew, destroyed an entire British armored column in 15 minutes. From the 2-man Panzer I with nothing but machine guns, to the 70-ton King Tiger that Allied shells couldn't penetrate, this is the complete story of German armor in World War II. This is every German tank used in World War II. Germany's first Panzer wasn't supposed to fight at all. Over 1,800 Panzer I tanks were built as training vehicles in the mid-1930s. 2 machine guns, 15 millimeters of armor, and a 2-man crew. That's it. The Treaty of Versailles had forbidden Germany from building tanks after World War I, so these early Panzers were disguised as agricultural tractors during development. By the time Hitler openly defied the treaty in 1935, the Panzer I was already in production. But when war came in September 1939, Germany didn't have enough real combat tanks. The Panzer III and V were still in limited production, so the Panzer I went to war in Poland and France anyway. Its 7.92mm machine guns were useless against enemy tanks. French and British armor could destroy them from ranges the Panzer I couldn't even return fire. Crews called it a death trap. In Poland, Panzer I made up nearly half of Germany's tank force, but suffered the highest casualties. By 1941, it was obsolete for everything except reconnaissance. The Panzer I taught German crews how to fight in tanks, but it also taught them a brutal lesson. Machine guns don't stop armor. Sometimes the most important lesson is what not to build. The Panzer II was supposed to be temporary. Over 1A to 50 were built between 1935 and 1942 as a stopgap until better tanks arrived. It mounted a 20mm autocannon and weighed 10 tons with a 3-man crew. It was faster than the Panzer I and actually had a gun that could damage light vehicles. The 20mm could penetrate about 20 millimeters of armor at close range, enough to threaten other light tanks but nothing heavier. Germany used roughly 1,000 Panzer IIs in Poland, another 1,000 in France, and hundreds more in Russia. For the first 2 years of the war, the Panzer II was actually the most numerous tank in German service, not because it was good, but because the Panzer III and IV weren't ready yet. The problem? Its 20mm gun couldn't penetrate Soviet T-34 armor, not even close. Against British Matilda tanks in France, it was equally helpless. Tank crews had to aim for tracks or vision ports and hope for luck. By 1942, the Panzer II was clearly outmatched. Production stopped, and surviving tanks were converted into tank destroyers or sent to reconnaissance units. It bought Germany time when time was all they had, but time eventually ran out. Want to know Germany's original main battle tank? The Panzer III. Designed in the 1930s to fight other tanks, it was supposed to be the core of German armored forces. Over 5,700 were built between 1939 and 1943. The early models mounted a 37mm gun, the same caliber as many anti-tank rifles. German tank designers assumed this would be adequate for tank versus tank combat. They were wrong. Then 50mm. The armor was upgraded from 30mm to 50mm, then to 70mm as the war progressed. Each version tried desperately to keep up with enemy tanks. By 1941, Germany was literally adding armor plates onto existing tanks in the field. But in June 1941, German tankers met the Soviet T-34 for the first time. It was a shock. The Panzer III's gun couldn't penetrate it from the front. Even the upgraded 50mm gun struggled against the T-34's sloped armor. Meanwhile, the T-34's 76mm gun could kill a Panzer III from any angle at any combat range. German tank commander Paul von Harnack wrote, "Our shells simply bounced off while they knocked us out from 2,500 meters." The psychological impact was devastating. By 1943, the Panzer III was relegated to support roles, but its chassis lived on as the Stugge 3 assault gun, Germany's most produced armored vehicle of the war, with over 9,000 built. Sometimes the chassis outlasts the tank. Here's the tank that saved Germany's armored forces. The Panzer IV was designed in 1937 as an infantry support tank with a short 75mm howitzer. Nothing special. Over 8,500 were built, more than any other German tank. Originally, it wasn't even supposed to fight other tanks. That was the Panzer III's job. The Panzer IV was meant to sit back and lob high-explosive shells at bunkers and infantry positions. Its short-barreled gun was perfect for that, useless against armor. But in 1942, everything changed. German engineers replaced the short howitzer with a long-barreled, high-velocity 75mm gun. Suddenly, the Panzer IV could kill a T-34 at 1,600 meters. The tank that wasn't supposed to fight other tanks became Germany's main tank destroyer. This is the tank that fought everywhere: North Africa, Russia, Normandy, Italy, the Balkans. When Panthers broke down and Tigers were unavailable, the Panzer IV kept fighting. It was reliable, easy to maintain, and simple to produce compared to later designs. Tank crews could repair it with basic tools in the field. German tank crews loved it for a ionic. Simple reason: it worked. While the Panther cost 117,000 Reichsmarks and the Tiger cost 250,000, the Panzer IV cost only 103,000. You could build 2 Panzer IVs for the price of 1 Tiger. By 1944, roughly half of all German tanks were Panzer IVs, or variants. The Panzer IV was the only German tank to remain in continuous production throughout the entire war. First produced in 1937, last produced in 1945. 8 years of constant evolution. The workhorse outlasted the thoroughbreds. Remember that for what comes next. June 13, 1944. Villers-Bocage, France. A British armored column rolls through the town toward the high ground at point 213. They're expecting light resistance. The Desert Rats, veterans of North Africa, are confident. They've just punched through a gap in the German lines and are racing to exploit it. Instead, they're about to meet Michael Wittmann. Wittmann was already a tank ace with over 100 kills on the Eastern Front. That morning, he had only 5 operational Tigers from the 101st SS Heavy Panzer Battalion. The other Tigers were broken down after the 5-day drive from Belgium. Mechanical failures, Allied air attacks, chronic reliability problems that plagued German heavy tanks. At 9 a.m., Wittmann's Tiger emerged from cover onto the main road. In less than 15 minutes, he destroyed 13 to 14 British tanks, 2 anti-tank guns, and 15 transport vehicles. 1 tank, 15 minutes. An entire armored column destroyed. His Tiger drove straight through the town, guns blazing. British crews scrambled to return fire, but their 75mm shells bounced off harmlessly. One Cromwell tank commander fired 2 shots point-blank at the Tiger. Both ricocheted away. Then the Tiger's 88mm gun replied. The Cromwell exploded. This is what the Tiger I could do. Only 347 were built between 1942 and 1944. Each cost 250,000 Reichsmarks, twice the price of a Panzer IV. The 88mm gun could penetrate 112mm of armor at 1,400 meters. The armor was 100mm thick on the front, 80mm on the sides. Allied tank crews watched their shots bounce off while their own tanks burned. But the Tiger ate fuel, broke down constantly, and was too heavy for most bridges. It took 300,000 man-hours to build one, almost twice as long as a Panther. Wittmann was killed 2 months later on August 8, 1944. The Tiger I was phased out that same month, replaced by the Tiger II. Fearsome. Expensive. Never enough of them. July 5, 1943. The Battle of Kursk. Germany's launching Operation Citadel with 200 brand-new Panther tanks. These weren't just any tanks. They were Germany's answer to the Soviet T-34. Sloped armor borrowed from Soviet design. A high-velocity 75mm gun that could penetrate 140mm of armor at 1,000 meters, and 45 tons of German engineering excellence. On paper, they were unstoppable. In reality, 16 broke down before the battle even started. 2 caught fire getting off the trains. By the evening of July 7th, just 2 days later, only 40 Panthers remained operational. Engine fires, transmission failures, fuel pump problems. Over 100 Panthers were sitting in repair shops. This is what happens when you rush a tank into combat before it's ready. Hitler insisted the Panther was ready for Kursk. Tank commander Heinz Guderian argued it needed more testing, more training, more time. Hitler won the argument. The Panther lost the battle. But here's the thing. Once the mechanical problems were fixed by late 1943, the Panther became arguably the best tank of the war. Around 6,000 were built between 1943 and 1945. It could destroy any Allied tank from ranges they couldn't match. The 75mm L-70 gun had better penetration than the Tiger's 88mm at most combat ranges. It was faster than the Tiger with a top speed of 55 kilometers per hour. It was cheaper to produce at 117,000 Reichsmarks. And once the bugs were worked out, it was far more reliable than early models suggested. By mid-1944, availability rates reached 54% compared to just 37% in late 1943. The U.S. Army calculated it took 5 Sherman tanks to destroy 1 Panther, 5 to 1. The French Army used captured Panthers until the 1950s because they were that good. Get the engineering right first, or pay the price in blood. The heaviest operational tank of World War II. The Tiger II, also called the King Tiger, weighed nearly 70 tons and mounted an 88mm L-71 gun that could penetrate 185 millimeters of armor at 2,000 meters. Only 489 were built between January 1944 and March 1945. Its armor was 180 millimeters thick on the front, 80 millimeters on the sides. Allied tank shells bounced off like pebbles. No Allied tank could penetrate its frontal armor at any practical combat range. But it was also slow with a top speed of just 42 kilometers per hour, chronically unreliable, and consumed fuel like a bonfire. A single Tiger II needed 860 liters to fill its fuel tanks. At least 150 Tiger IIs fought in the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944. Most were lost to mechanical failure or lack of fuel, not enemy fire. When your tank is too heavy to cross bridges and burns through fuel faster than your supply lines can deliver it, firepower doesn't matter. Engineering perfection that arrived too late to change anything. 7 tanks. From the training Panzer I to the 70-ton King Tiger, Germany built them too heavy, too complicated, and in most cases too late. The Panzer I and II were obsolete before the war even started, but had to fight anyway. The Panzer III was outclassed the moment it met the T-34. The Panzer IV fought the entire war and kept working, proving that reliability beats sophistication. The Tiger and Panther struck fear into Allied tank crews, but broke down constantly and cost too much to produce in the numbers Germany needed. Quality versus quantity. Engineering perfection versus mass production. Germany chose one path. The Allies chose the other. By 1944, the United States was building more tanks in a single month than Germany built in an entire year. Superior engineering couldn't overcome superior numbers. Subscribe to Battlefield Blueprint so you don't miss any exciting video like this.